Today on City Cast Madison. If you've ridden a Madison Metro bus anytime lately, you've likely heard these.
Gorham at Blair.
But who's behind the voice? It is a person, by the way, and his name is Ward Paxton. His voice can be heard across the Madison Metro area tens of thousands of times a day. And I want to introduce you. It's Wednesday, March 22nd. I'm Bianca Martin, and here's what Madison's talking about. Hello, Ward.
Hi, Bianca. Nice to be with you.
Oh, so happy to have you. I have to ask, firstly, how did you become the voice of Madison Metro?
Well, I had worked at the City Transportation Planning Division and was involved with starting a transportation demand management program for the city. And we tried to and did successfully incorporate some Metro features such as the bus pass program. And then this service improvement, the bus stop announcements, came along at that time. And I had a little bit of background in doing some voice work, doing commercials and that kind of thing. So since I was familiar with Metro, I think I just kind of slid into it.
So how long would you say you've been the voice for folks who've been writing?
You know, I think it's about 20 years.
Wow.
Yeah, quite a while. This Enunciator software has been around for quite a while. And I can't remember exactly because I think we tested it a little bit. You know how when you get new software, you're kind of trying it out and tweaking it and so forth. So it took a while before it was actually implemented on all the buses. But yeah, I think about 20 years.
Oh my goodness gracious. Can you talk a little bit more about the Enunciator?
Yeah, it's a GPS-triggered kind of system so that when the bus reaches certain GPS coordinates, that stop is triggered to that announcement. And so the driver doesn't have to do anything. It's just when it gets to the Capitol Square, the announcement comes on. And when it gets to, East Washington and First Street, that announcement is triggered. It's just one of those service improvements that, helps people. If you think about the city of Madison, where we have a lot of people that go to the university, for example, that come from out of town and maybe even out of state, and they aren't really familiar with the street names, the street network, or landmarks at first. So having these announcements, is helpful and welcome to be sure you get off at the right stop.
I have to agree. I definitely have to agree. Has anyone ever recognized you as the voice of Metro?
Not really. I do have a few friends who also ride the bus, and when it first started, they did, but that's because they were friends. It's not people that just out in the public.
Well, I feel like that counts.
Yeah,
your friends. I would count my friends. Well, so then, have you been on the bus and heard your own voice?
Yes.
What is that like?
And at bus stops, this is not an example from being on the bus, but I was walking my dog and he recognized my voice. The stop announcement could be heard outside the bus. I was walking on the sidewalk, but the stop announcement was loud enough coming through the windows. And I'm telling you, he recognized it. He kind of stopped and looked up at me, and it's kind of funny.
That is very sweet. And also, I'm just picturing if you on the bus and hearing your own voice. I'm curious, knowing probably other people don't know it's you. Do you feel kind of like Clark Kent?
Yeah, definitely. When it first started, I was a little worried that you get reviewed when you're doing stuff for broadcast. People that ride the same route day after day, probably it gets a little bit boring, the same announcements over and over. So I do have a little concern about that.
Oh.
No, I haven't gotten too much tough reviews on it.
That's good. Well, I feel like might be some folks out there who well, I would love to do that. I want to be the voice of Metro someday, maybe some young kids who does that? But could you take us there, set the scene? How would you read a stop?
The style is really pretty straightforward. because you want to be sure that it's crisp and clean diction so that they really hear it. There's going to be people talking on the bus. So a basic, sincere, a little bit upbeat kind of a style. But the main thing is to be sure that it's clear and crisp diction so that it is understood. And to that end, I work toward, I have some settings on the software that I recorded on so that it is the same each time, that the announcements, when we do a new route or add a new announcement of some kind, that it is the same because you don't want the levels jumping around.
Got it. You don't do like weird voices.
Yeah, you don't want them to be straining to hear it, but you also don't want it to be so loud that it's jarring. So anyway, I do have some settings so I know that it's consistent with what we've done in the past. And then I just send an email. The real gurus to this are Mick Rush and Tim Sabota, who's a planner for this. And they send me a script and I send them back an MP3 file and he loads it onto the Annunciator program and it gets fed out to the appropriate route.
Would you mind saying like East Gorham and Hancock?
East Gorham at Hancock.
Ah! Yes! Thank you. Oh my gosh.
Is that where you get off, Bianca? Is that your stop?
It certainly was in the past, because I've lived in a couple places in Madison.
High fees and a low rate. That's what your big bank offers for your business savings. It's time to bring your business to Live Oak Bank. For a limited time, earn $150 when you open a new business savings account at Live Oak Bank. Convenient digital access, superior customer support, no maintenance fees, and one of the best interest rates in the country. Open a business savings account before March 31st to qualify. For full offer details and terms, go to liveoakbank.com/Spotify.
I'm just curious about, if like the training, it sounds like you'd already done some vocal gigs, but the gurus, do you consult them for tricky street name pronunciations?
Yeah, there is some word research that goes into it when there are new streets, and I can tell you one that there's a little bit of controversy about, and some people pronounce it Rosé Road, and some people pronounce it Rosa Road.
Right. Coming
to an agreement on that is something that we need to do. And so I work through those guys to make sure that we do it how they want it.
And that's over on the west side, right?
Yeah, right.
Where do you fall in the controversy?
I believe the correct pronunciation is rosé.
I want to agree with you just because I prefer that. But they're both beautiful.
Yeah, and it gets us closer to having a glass of wine.
Yes. Yeah. Not while driving or on the bus. And there's also the road Seago. Kind of sounds like a seagull. When I see it, my brain says like Segoa, which doesn't make any sense, but definitely some tricky ones out there.
But if you did do one incorrectly, you would hear about it because they will let you know that that's something that hits a nerve with people from that neighborhood that use that stop. So I'm pretty careful to make sure that I've done the word research so that I get it right because I don't want to cause any complaining.
Is that something that you have a natural passion for anyway?
Yeah, I do like to do that kind of thing and understand a little bit. There's some history to it, but mainly it's just you want to be correct. That's my main thing, and to be helpful. I love the Metro system, and we're trying to make it as useful and as attractive as a transportation option as possible. And so that rider experience is very important to make it as cool as possible.
I mean, you really care about this.
Yeah, I think that has to come through, because you want satisfied customers. And, people have choices. They could drive their car or, ride a bike or something. So we do try to have a very excellent bus service in Madison.
Why do you think people should ride the bus? Like, obviously, it's part of green goals for the city.
Yeah. My own personal opinion, just as a citizen on this planet, is that, climate change is quite a threat to us, and automobile emissions are a big part of that. So if we can attract commuters into mass transit, then that helps to reduce those emissions. So I think that's an important goal for us to have and to try to meet.
I feel like I have a bunch of funny anecdotes and memories of being on the bus, just random things that have happened, people that I've met, people that I knew that come on, I have good memories from the bus. And do you have any memories that you can share?
From doing this bus stop announcement, I remember when we first, decided that I would be the person to do it and was told that there are 2,200 stops. And that is, at first, a little bit overwhelming to think about, pages and pages. And also just starting to do it because, it's just one or two words. If anybody has been in a play or done a commercial and you read a script, there's sentences and paragraphs and a speech that you give. But this is just one or two words. And so it's just was a very unusual kind of voice work to be doing at first. And then I saw pages and pages. It just kept going on and on. So that was a little bit overwhelming at first, actually. And now it's just usually, one page. They add a section of routes, some new stops, and it's nothing, very long to do.
2,200 streets, and you're still updating, you're still adding, as things change.
Yeah, Madison is growing, so there's always something new. Metro adjusts their routes, and usually in August. So there's usually some work to do then because they've either switched a route or they've added some sections to it. And so there's usually some work to do then.
I'm really curious. Have you lent your vocal powers to other projects? And by the way, I just think of you as Clark Kent now, just so you know. I hope people know that there is a Clark Kent, perhaps that might be on your bus.
Yeah. Most of my work is doing audiobook narration. Yeah, so I don't know if you listen to audiobooks.
Yeah, I'm a huge audiobook fan, every single night. I probably shouldn't be listening to such engaging content at night, but sometimes I am. Something that's fun that you can do with your voice is accents.
Oh, yes.
And I understand you could do a few.
Well, yeah, you know how sometimes when you're reading along in a book and there's a couple of mates from Australia appearing in it, they go to a barbie one day. Well, if you're the narrator, you got to make them sound like that. Hey, Delmar, I didn't understand a word that man said, did you?
Oh, yes.
That's enough of that. So a little Scottish there for you.
That's so fun. Ward Paxton, vocal actor, and the voice of Madison Metro. In a way, I feel like I've met you before, but it is absolutely a pleasure to meet you and to talk with you.
My pleasure.
That was Ward Paxton, voice actor, retired transit planner for the city of Madison, and the voice of Madison Metro. And here's what else Madison's talking about. Governor Evers and Wisconsin Democrats reintroduced a bill to overturn the ban on abortions in our state. This is ahead of the upcoming Supreme Court election, where the issue of abortion is essentially, although not officially, on the ballot. It was a prominent issue in yesterday's debate between candidates Dan Kelly and Janet Protasewicz. And if you're looking for something to do tonight, at 8 p.m., there's a Nerd Night at High Noon Saloon. Love Nerd Night. If you haven't been to one of those events, folks give nerdy and often pretty funny presentations on a topic of their choosing. Apparently tonight's topics are frogs in winter, furniture making, and the voices in your head. We'll throw links with details in our show notes. That's all for today here on City Cast Madison. I'm Bianca Martin. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell your favorite bus driver about us? And when you have a moment, why not rate our show? It really helps others find us. We'll be back tomorrow with more stories from around the city. Until then, don't miss the bus.
Next up, City Cast Madison.